Should be now recording.
Scott, thank you for taking a moment to spend some time with me talking about UC on UCS. I know that's a big part of what you wanted to talk about today. But before we actually get to that, if you allow me, I'd like to take just a second and tell you about AppNet Services and what makes us different from our competitors. AppNet Services was founded in 1998, so we're about 14 years old. That's not real old if you're in the steel industry or a lot of other businesses, but actually in our industry of network integration, that makes us pretty old, having been in this business a while, very well established. When we were founded back in 1998, we were founded by an engineer. That engineer continues to be our president today. And some of the things that comes out of that really differentiates us specifically from our competitors in terms of our philosophies. We have a very technology-oriented philosophy, a very service-oriented philosophy. We have a lot of long-term employees. We have a lot of long-term customers. We're not trying to be everything to everybody, and we're not trying to grow as fast as we possibly can or get every customer. We have grown and changed a lot over time. Expanding into 4 states, so we're basically across the major portion of the Southeast, and with 6 offices that do sales and engineering. So we have a pretty good sized footprint. Over time, our product set has grown, and grown pretty dramatically, as a matter of fact. Not again because we're trying to do everything, but because those customers who've been with us over the years have asked us to take on more and to expand our product and service set. Today we're engaged in about 6 business areas with a new 7th area as well coming along in the form of unified facilities that tie these things together. Particularly just kind of walking you through what we do. Application development. We don't write ERP systems, but often ERP systems have to be linked with other systems to accomplish business objectives. We write a lot of applications. One of my customers is using us, for example, to write applications that they utilize to make their systems communicate with, in this case, their largest customer, Mercedes-Benz. One of the fields that we're engaged in is collaboration, and that's kind of Cisco's word for all those areas in which customers interact, have application areas and systems that interact with their customers and their employees, kind of extending that value chain. So collaboration would include voice, or it would include video conferencing, or it might include mobility for your employees and things like that. Another area that we're active in is data center virtualization. Obviously that's a part of what we're going to talk about today in a little bit greater detail. But the concept behind virtualization is well established, and it's creating and driving efficiencies within organizations from a management and cost management standpoint. We also are very active in infrastructure and security. And what that basically means is the physical backbone of your network environment, wiring, cabling, as well as some application areas like video and video security. We have guys who are specialists in burglar and fire, and making that operate and function properly within the network itself. So it's a very large area for us. I have customers for whom we wire their buildings all the way out to their cubicles, for whom we wire their cameras, for whom they wire their front gates, and for whom we manage their burglar and fire capabilities. So infrastructure and security is that element of it. We offer certain managed services. It's an area in which basically ranges from the idea of monthly support contracts for customers and monitoring of their networks, all the way to hosting applications. We expect this to be a big growth area for us. The whole concept of the cloud kind of fits within that IT as a service sort of footprint. And that's a major part of our business. Additionally, network infrastructure. A company like ours really started, in many respects, in switching and routing and the network, those basic pieces of the network itself. And that continues to be a major part of our business. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, unified facilities, which really is the concept of making all of this work together in a customer environment. All the way out from a residential environment to a commercial environment to whatever it may be that you're interested in, but tying together everything from the cabling and video through the network, to the data, to the voice. That is a very large part of our business today, and we expect it to be a larger part in the future, and a place where we bring a lot of value. If that makes sense, do you have any questions for us or for me about our business? Very good. Well, then let me move from this to a discussion real quickly of what you were interested in knowing a little more about, and we'd spoken on the phone about the concept of UC, or Unified Communications, on UCS, which is Cisco's Unified Computing Systems. In order to really talk through that, I need to take a step back, talk a bit about what your environment looks like today, and kind of carry it forward to what it would be like in a UC on UCS sort of situation. I've taken the liberty of putting a few things up on the board here just to kind of get us started, and let me tell you kind of what I've got here. Really, we have three headings, which is what a network really looks like in a non-virtualized environment, what a network might look like in a fully virtualized environment today, and then what a network, how the UC on UCS takes that and basically brings it forward again for you to gain some business efficiencies. In a non-virtualized environment, and I know you're familiar with this, but I think it'll make more sense if we go through the process a little bit on this. Non-virtualized environment, you basically have hardware and software and capabilities and systems that are committed to a single application most of the time. An example of that might be a financial application running on a server. On that server, you've got hardware doing processing, you've got hardware and software controlling and managing that application, and then you have some storage on that. All those things are basic. There are many other pieces, but those are basic pieces required for pretty much every application in a non-virtualized environment. So you might have a whole series of servers, or basically computers, that are doing individual functions. And you might have a server running a financial application with its overhead of software, where 60% of the processor is utilized, but only 30% of the storage. You might have another application doing file server sorts of responsibilities, where it's just the reverse, where 60% or 80% or 90% of the storage is being utilized, but only a smaller fraction of the processor. Yet you have that sitting out there, kind of allocated to that service, and really can't be used by other applications. So we create an environment with that, where you have a lot of hardware sitting out there that's been purchased for a purpose, can only be used for that purpose, but in reality is not being utilized by that specific application. And let's say you run into a situation where you have an application running, a financial application, using 30% of your processor, but you're using 80% of your storage, and it's starting to slow down. What do? You go out and buy a bigger box, because that's the way it's sold. And again, it's dedicated. Now you fixed your storage problem, but you've perhaps got more capacity sitting idle on the actual computing aspect of it. What happens as a cumulative thing with all these dedicated resources is that you have a high level of overhead. You have many single points of failure. If this server goes down, that application stops. It doesn't affect all the others, but that application stops. Now, I should say it can affect all the others if they're looking for things that server runs. But you have a number of single points of failure. You have a lot of wasted resources. You have a lot of wasted space. You have a lot of power going to do that. You have a lot of maintenance on all those pieces of equipment. Your business is still somewhat vulnerable. In that world, to address those problems, the concept of virtualization, which takes us back to an older time, was developed. But the concept of virtualization says, can we share some of these resources? So kind of moving forward in a virtualized environment, you might take a server, and it might run multiple applications. We refer to them as virtual machines. And in that scenario, these applications are sharing hardware resources. A couple of the resources they share, they'll share a server, but that server still has its basic overhead of operating cost and control. They may share some of the storage, but you can put in a shared storage device that multiple servers and multiple applications can use. The challenge there comes that you still have to connect all of these physical devices literally through that backbone we talked about, cabling and wiring and control function to this shared storage. So you end up with an environment that is better from the standpoint that you have fewer points of failure. What I'm saying by that in a virtual environment is that if this server goes down, and it's running a financial application and a couple of operational applications, and it goes down, then that work can be shifted to a different server that can run. They may not all run as fast. You can allocate those resources based on priority. So you have fewer points of failure, but you still have individual overhead for each of these physical server devices. So with virtualization, what we've done is we've compressed some of our costs on software, and we've compressed some of our costs on storage, but we've created a lot of individual connections to shared devices, which is costly, still takes space. What hasn't moved forward is the server itself. You're still using basically the same server, and it still has basically its overhead. The concept of UCS is Cisco's answer to that problem. If we could start over today with the server technology and the platform that it stands on, how would we do it differently? And UCS does that. Virtualization takes advantage of software from someone named VMware. Virtualization takes advantage of shared storage that has been developed for this environment. Today, what we want to do is advance the server technology so it integrates better with that, reducing your overhead. And a UCS server, you get the benefits of virtualization as they exist now. But with UCS technology, we take that control function and we move it up above the level of the server so that they're shared in that. So you don't have redundant control costs. And we take that cabling and we basically simplify that process, so we reduce the number of connections and the challenge of trying to manage all of those connections in an environment. And once we do that, we can speed those up. We can make everything happen faster, and we can share these. So basically what we've done with UCS, Unified Computing System, is basically we have redesigned the hardware and the infrastructure to take advantage further, to move us down the road on the advantages of virtualization. Now, in this old world we talked about a non-virtual, and even in the world of virtualized, there are certain applications that couldn't be virtualized. Your data, and from the standpoint of video, might not be on that system. And in particular, your voice could not be virtualized on it. With UCS, we can take Cisco's Unified Call Manager and now add that to this virtualized process with all the benefits that come out of that. Lower operating costs, better integration, faster response, lower operating costs from the standpoint of power and space and things like that, greater stability and resilience in a virtualized environment. So by taking Cisco's Unified Call Manager and virtualizing it, putting on Cisco's unified computing system, by putting those two things together, we add voice to the benefits of virtualization, and we lower our cost of hardware, we lower our cost of software, we improve our management of storage, we reduce our infrastructure costs, and significantly, and we want to talk about this in detail once we get to your specific needs, we enable this system to integrate a number of applications in this virtualized environment, which are available under what Cisco refers to as their unified communications. Things from video to presence to voice itself. So let's take just a minute and we'll talk about your specific needs and how this relates specifically to you and your environment. Does that make sense?
It does.
Thank you.